The 2015 Writers Group Halloween by Ivan Bridgewater. As you may recall, we left our local Florida writers group in a bit of a pinch. Dan looked down at the beeping matter-antimatter weapon and repeated Hal's perfect explicative, yelling out, "Oh, shit!" Hal glanced over and said, "That's redundant. You can do far better." Understandably excited, Kat yelled out, "Just get rid of the thing!" Ted, a writer who just loved good common-sense outlook, said, "I'd say we're all about to die." Never one to overreact, Hal said, "You're just not seeing the big picture here. If this thing goes off, you will never know it. There will be a split second when I look scared shitless, and then you'll just be a vapor trail. No pain, no reason for being upset, so just calm down." Ted urged caution, saying, "In theory, you might be right, but it's possible that much of a matter-antimatter blast might cause an alteration in the time-space continuum. You might be caught in the moment of the blast for eternity." "Now see," said Hal, "that's what I'm talking about. Good use of imagination, Ted." Growing pretty agitated, Kat said, "I'm not going to say it again. Will you please get rid of that thing?" Trying to calm the situation, John asked, "Should I read from the book again?" Turning around sharply and looking at John, Hal said, "Hell no! That thing is what got this all started in the first place." Stomping her foot once in exasperation, Kat yelled, "Somebody do something!" Abruptly, John grabbed the thing and threw it in a bucket of water sitting nearby with some gardening supplies. Ted screamed an explicative and Hal yelled out, "What the hell did you do that for?" John shrugged self-consciously and said, "I saw it in a movie once." "I have my serious doubts," responded Ted, "that a bucket of water will suffice here." Kat reached past John and grabbed the device out of the bucket. She briskly shook the device twice, shaking the water off. Then she turned the device sideways so a 2-minute timer could be seen just counting below the 2-minute mark. Shoving it at Hal, she yelled, "Can you see that? Do something!" Hal snatched the device from her hand and said, "Please stop shaking the matter-antimatter bomb. You're making me nervous." At that moment, the last 3 writers in the house walked out. Dana, one of the leaders of the group, asked, "What's going on out here, Hal?" Holding up the ticking device, Hal said, "They returned the stupid thing." Drew and Brenda, the 2 writers with Dana, started backing up the stairs into the house as though being inside would be safer if the thing went off. In an almost accusing voice, Dana said, "Hal, have you been reading from the book on Halloween?" "Not me," snapped Hal, pointing at John. "He did it. I keep trying to teach them, and I swear they never listen." Lightning flashed to the north, and a split second later, thunder crashed loud enough to make the group jump. John was backpedaling and asked, "How was I supposed to know calling on the old gods from that stupid book could cause this much trouble?" Hal hissed, "Stop bringing up the old gods. It's Halloween, you know." It appeared most of the local area was clear, but right here, a storm was brewing for Halloween. A voice thundered through the clouds now forming in the local area and said, "It is time, humans. Pray to whatever god you now worship. In 1 minute, time will end for you. Finally, the end of mankind has arrived." Under his breath, Hal muttered, "Geez, they just never know when to shut up." A very light mist of rain started to fall as lightning flashed overhead again. Hal's eyes met John's, and the latter man said, "It's a dark and stormy night, Hal." Hal looked closely at John and said, "Are you trying to give me grief? Can't you see I have a situation here?" Slightly chagrined, John said, "I'm sorry, but it's dark and stormy. I'm just stating a fact." Kat said, "I'm going to start getting ticked if somebody doesn't get rid of that thing." Drew, one of the writers who had just walked out of the house, asked, "Why can I hear it ticking clear over here? It's a digital display. They don't make any sound." "It's from my imagination," said Hal. "It probably won't even go off." "Let's not find out," yelled Kat. "Please get rid of the thing." Standing up on the house steps, Brenda said, "That sounds like a really good idea to me." Dana said, "Quit playing around, Hal, and get rid of the thing." With a sigh, Hal said, "Fine. I'm trying to turn this into a learning experience, and you cut the legs right out from under me." Hal released the device from his hand. Instead of falling, it hung in the air for just a moment. Then it began to race skyward faster and faster. In just a few seconds, it was gone out of sight. 2 seconds later, the group heard a sonic boom, and the device was no longer in Earth's region of space. Created by imagination, The device moved far faster than the speed of light. Mere seconds later, it arrived at its projected target millions of light years away. The great god Valdermorthian was minding his own business when the device arrived. He had been in existence since the beginning of time, and normally ignored the puny humans. He had no understanding of matter and antimatter. He was a god, and would exist and thrive till the end of time. Perhaps the great god Valdermorthian would have been right under normal circumstances. This, however, was not normal circumstances. The weapon was devised by imagination, and that is a prime factor in the power of any god. That imagination was magnified by the fact that imagination was where most of the power of any god comes from. Without the power of imagination, most gods would have vanished years ago. So when the device suddenly triggered, the great god Valdermorthian just had time to say the words, "Oh my!" Then a giant explosion bigger than a billion suns occurred, and that god was never more. Back on Earth, the writers' group had just started to calm down. They all stood talking for a minute about the events of the evening and generally being grateful to be alive. They had no concept that in 80 years the shockwaves from the explosion that had just occurred would destroy the Earth with a withering blast of cosmic energy. At that moment, the group was just relieved that the world as they knew it appeared to have returned to normal. Pleased that the disaster appeared averted, Kat laughed out loudly and said, "I was beginning to think our time was up. You cut that kind of close." With a snicker, Hal said, "It wasn't even close. There was more than 10 seconds left when it departed here. It's not even suspenseful till it drops below 4 seconds. From the base of the stairs, Dana said, "My watch says it's almost midnight on Halloween, folks. It's getting pretty nasty outside. I say let's just break it up and call it a night." Every person in the group looked at their watch at the same time. John whistled slightly and said, "Did we just lose 6 hours or what?" Ted immediately said, "I knew it. Now we've destabilized time. The universe as we know it is gone. Our lives are over. Geez, I hate it when this happens." Even in the dark, it was obvious the cat was shaken. She looked at Ted and said, "Do you have any reason to think that has happened?" "No," replied Ted, "but I figure the way the meeting has gone tonight, we're all doomed anyway." "Speak for yourself," instructed Hal. "I have no intention of being doomed by some ancient moldering life form from back at the beginning of time." At that moment, through the lightly misting rain, a booming voice said, "You have dared to assault and destroy a god. For this transgression, you shall all pay with your souls." Without thinking, John blurted out, "Will that hurt?" He looked around sheepishly as every person there gave him a dirty look. Dana quickly looked up at the sky and shouted, "I don't know what you're talking about. I believe you're mistaken. Can you contact me on Monday once I've spoken to my attorney and my priest? It's possible we may be able to mitigate this all out and come to some arrangement." A bolt of lightning slammed into the street 100 yards away, and everyone visibly jumped as the thunder rolled across them at close range. Hal threw up his hands and said, "Whoa, I admit I did it. It was my fault. You don't need to punish anyone else. Just let the rest of these people go." It was pitch dark outside at this point. It seemed obvious that it was late at night, yet the clouds seemed to open and sunlight streamed down to the earth, right where the group was standing. Looking up through the dark clouds into the bright shaft of sunlight streaming down, Drew said, "Oh boy, this can't be good." "This is another fine mess you've gotten me into," quoted Brenda. "Stand forth, mortals! Stand forth within the light!" roared the voice from the clouds. "The time of final judgment is upon the race known as human. Are you prepared for thy final judgment?" "I'm telling you, this is all just a big misunderstanding," yelled Hal. "I didn't even call you guys. This is distinctly not fair and certainly not godlike." A look of irritation flashed across Hal's face, and he yelled, "What, are you the gods of stupid bullshit and unfair punishments, or what?" Stepping away from the house, Dana hissed, "Don't piss them off, Hal. I don't like the way this is turning out." Hal turned to her quickly and said, "Well, they're starting to piss me off. I didn't even start this. Mister, it's a dark and stormy night over there. Got this all started with that stupid book." "Stupid book?" questioned Dana. "We're a writers' group, Hal." "I didn't mean it that way," sputtered Hal. "I just meant this wasn't my fault." John stepped into the center of the light and yelled, "It's my fault. Let's get this over with." "Very well," thundered the voice from above. There was a thunderous crash, as though the earth was being ripped apart. Everything more than 100 yards from the house was gone. Everyone in the riders' group was thrown to the ground by the force of the blast. The world they looked upon as they stood up was drastically different than the earth they knew and loved. Far in the distance, giant volcanoes spewed lava and fumes of smoking ash. 2 suns and a moon could be seen in the sky at the same time. It appeared that the small bit of earth that had been in the light had now been transported to some place far away. What really caught everyone's focus was the 12 giants that sat on huge stone thrones in a circle around the group. Each giant appeared to be close to a mile tall. Of course, with no frame of reference, it was hard to tell. The instant implication was that the group had been brought before the gods. The largest of the giants thundered, "You stand now before the greatest of the old gods. You may plead your case or die quickly without further discussion." Totally caught off guard, Hal loudly said the words, "Oh, shit!" And so it was that the human race was judged. This story was developed for the writers' group of Manatee, Florida. Due to its length, the story has been broken into segments. We hope you will join us next Halloween for the next segment of the story. Thanks. The end. And happy Halloween.